Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jim.
So I've been trying to think of ways that we can get new viewers and listeners into our podcast.
Oh, really? That's a great idea, Jim. What have you come up with?
Go with me on this. What if we offered 12 episodes for a penny?
Well, the problem might be it's already free.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. This whole club idea, that'll never work. Hello and welcome to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast where each week we two guys get together, we talk about records, and this week we're talking about club records. Don't worry, folks, we're not going to try something weird like charging for a podcast that's free everywhere. That's just me thinking on the other side. My name's Jim and I own a record store.
And I'm Steve, a record collector and someone that's been known to join different record clubs.
You're a joiner, I think, is the way we're getting to.
I am, for good, for bad, whatever. Hey,
and it goes back a ways to Columbia House Records, doesn't it?
Way back.
So the subject today is, of course, Columbia House and their announcement. Or was it a complete announcement? They're shutting down. This is a gray area, according to several videos I've watched on this. They're shutting down, but they're not shutting down all the way. But then they're shutting down all the way. But I guess maybe we'll try to dig into that.
Yeah. Yep. And looking back through the history,
indeed,
of a highly profitable business.
And it's meant a lot to a lot of collectors, yourself included. Me, not so much. I went back and look. I've never joined a club. I'm not a joiner. You are.
You're not joining. I just want to be part of a group, Jim. It's like, embrace me. I don't care how much I have to pay. Just like, embrace me.
Love me. Well, we'll get into all of that and hopefully find some answers on what Columbia House is doing. But then we'll also talk about some of these newer clubs that Steve's still a joiner on as well. Yeah, but all of that coming up here in just a couple of moments. But first, as we do each and every week, we're going to start with our most recent additions to the ever-growing collections. I've only got two things this week. It's been a quiet one, but that's okay. I got a big one.
Wow. Okay, I don't think I got a big one, but I had some VCLT and some other stuff. But let's just begin with this is a group called Mystic Tide Frustration, and it's off the Numero group, so you know it's obscure.
Yes.
And this is from the 60s. Yeah, good luck on finding anything, Jim. This is from the 60s, kind of a mercy beat, garage rock with some young high schoolers. Their dad kind of put a bunch of money into it to try to get them recorded and things. And it's not, there is some good and some throwaway stuff in here. Off whatever, Coke bottle, whatever you want to call that, right? And just different things you can buy off Numero Group. Numero Group's a cool label. They come up with a lot of neat stuff.
They do, and they always have. And you mentioned obscure, and yes, a lot of that does tend to be.
It does, and it came with information about them because you're not going to find anything otherwise. So most appreciative. Yes. And I'm going to have to read that before I show the album, because oftentimes I forget. So, just a 60s. Kind of a garagey mercy beat, decent harmonies. You could tell, they still had to work on their sound though. Okay,
probably didn't do too much after, yet. Did they?
No, nothing. In fact, I'm not sure if those even got released. Quite honestly.
Okay.
So then, brand new from a group called Marines. Don't Give Up. This is some great indie pop. Jangly guitars, extremely good harmonies, really, really good album. I'm totally enjoying this. One of my all-time favorite channels has cost me so much money. The Vinyl Douche, Sam. He's back now showing records, and he only does new stuff.
Okay.
And so my first vinyl douche record.
Now, when you said
Excited to
that,
have it.
I thought you said Marines, as in the Marines, the soldiers, but it's
Oh, yeah.
Maureen's. I looked at that closely. It's Maureen's.
Maureen's, yes.
As
Exactly.
all right.
And they put out a couple other albums, but this is their brand new one. And
Okay.
It's really is quite good. Very
Cool.
good. Had this. I saw this is another new album. A group I like. I've had some of their music from. Orquesta Aca. Yeah.
Well,
You know,
look at the spelling there.
that word, Jim. Yeah. Akokan, Akokan. For those of you that are not seeing it, orchestra. This is music from Cuba.
Okay.
It's salsa driven, mambo driven. It's very upbeat. It's fun. I bought their very first album. I really liked it. I think this is their third album also. So I was excited to see that this came out, and it was recorded live to tape. Okay, I guess sometimes you can record dead to tape. I didn't know that, but they are from Cuba, and so you get this cool sound of that Latin music that I'm kind of a big fan of, and the vinyl is really cool. Kind of a red, white, and blue with different stripes on there.
Yep.
That's fun. So, name of the album is America. So, yeah, a Cuban group doing America. Okay.
We'll make sure to try. Hopefully that's in Spotify for a sound sample. I'm interested in hearing that.
I think it will be. They're big enough that they would be. This is one I found at a record store. Brian Jones presents the Pipes of Pan at
You're having a pronunciation day, aren't you?
Well, that's pretty much every day. Just watch one of my videos and I just get screwed up. But who was it? One of the Allen Ginsberg, I think it was him that went to Morocco and kind of heard about these guys. And of course, Brian Jones was into all these experimental drugs and Ginsberg, and he heard about them. So he went down and recorded. And I used to have a CD of this. And well, I don't have that. And I saw this in a record store. So it's an original. I thought, okay. Let's just get that.
And that's Joujouka, Joujuka?
Yeah, Joujouka. Jojuka. However anybody wants to pronounce it, feel free. You have your own interpretation. This can be a little grating at times because they play, one of those like a clarinet, but not, and snakes come up. Okay, yeah. And they get, it can get on your nerves after a while, but there is this cool beat going on with drumming and other things happening that I really like, but you can only take so much of whatever the hell that instrument is.
Or a flute or a room full of school children
kind of
playing a recorder.
Yeah, kind of like a lute thing. So, I just saw it, bought it. And then real quick, I had some VCLT from a friend of mine. He watches our podcast all the time. He's out of Wales. Chris Mann is his name and his channel. It does say Chris Mann, but his monkeyer is the Vinyl Man. Because Chris Mann, the Vinyl Man, very nice. But he sent me 3 of the Rhino reissues.
Cool.
He just
the high fidelity
was kind
of
clearing out some stuff. Yeah, the high fidelity. So it's Wilco AM, and I used to have some Wilco, but I haven't had them. I only had them in CD. I put this, and I wasn't kind of so on Wilco back then, but 30 years later, I like this a lot. Again, one of those albums just takes me 30 years. I'm just slow at some things. He sent me Funhouse from Iggy and the Stooges. I have a nice original, but this sounds better because it hasn't been played for 50, 60 years. And then the Stooges' first album. And so all in the high fidelity series. So yeah, very nice. And so Chris, I know you're always watching. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And I was surprised. I told him, man, you're sending that out of England. Are you sure you don't have to do this? But he wanted to. So yeah, very nice.
Very cool.
So that's what I got this week, Jim.
All right. Well, I mentioned a big one, and I don't mean in terms of,
Yeah.
oh, goodness. I meant in terms of the retail price being a little over the top. But,
Okay.
so the Rolling Stones released Foreign Tongues, that was about a month or so ago, and we had a few
Yeah.
in the store, sold through them fairly quickly. I mean, it was like a 52 some odd dollar. I think we talked about that, a 52 some odd dollar list price on it. So they were out of stock. I decided to get a couple more, and I brought one in because a lot of folks have been asking about it. A lot of folks have been raving about it. So I opened up a copy to start playing here in the store. This is a good album, Steve. This is actually, it's leaps and bounds above Hackney Diamonds from a few years back. And Hackney Diamonds was okay. Is this a great Stones album? No, I don't think so. But it's darn good for what it is. And it goes back. A lot of it really harkens back to their bluesy edge stuff, their earlier blues edge stuff. And some of the lyrics and some of the songs are a little, I don't want to say risque, but they're out there. It's like all of a sudden Mick and Keith have decided they're going to get a little angry at things.
Well, they're almost 90, so they're probably just grumpy old men now,
They could be.
Curmudgeons.
The fact is that I listened to this a few times in the store, and I'm digging it. It's actually a good album. I got a couple of pet peeves, though. There's always a pet peeve, Steve. First off,
for 50 some bucks, yeah.
It's on this I've got the indie exclusive on the neon green vinyl, which is cool. They made it a double LP, and so some of the sides have 3 songs on them, and they go quick. Some have 4 songs. I don't think this could have easily been a single LP, but at least they went to a double LP and they didn't do 3 sides in an etching because it feels like you're really losing something out on that. But maybe a couple of the songs didn't need to be included. I'm not going to second guess the Stones. I think they've earned the right to do what they want to do. But some of the sides feel like they go a little fast on there. The other thing that I found this interesting, it's in a gatefold jacket. Let me show the inside of the gate here, but very cool covering, gatefold jacket. It's just a skosh larger than most records, so it's tough to fit into a poly sleeve. But all sorts of cool imagery of Mick, Keith, and Ronnie Wood, and that's pretty much it. That's what's left. And the session musicians. But here's what's also interesting. They sent the vinyl inside of paper inner sleeves with the poly lining inside. So it's got those really nice inner sleeves with the poly lining to protect the vinyl. Then they also sent inner sleeves with it as well.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So it was in the paper poly line sleeve, but then they had inner sleeves to go with it. So I guess if you decide you don't want the regular protection, you can just put it in the printed inner sleeves with all the lyrics, which I do appreciate because these songs are pretty darn good. But could these have been just an insert, like a little thing like there? But I get it. Some folks want to use the inner sleeves with the poly. Some want the regular inner sleeves. I don't know what I'm going to do on that, but it's a good album.
Jim, if they had wanted to, since they wanted to make this a 2-album set, they still could have cut some of the songs to make it a single album and then put it 45 RPM. You get the 2-album set of all great.
I'll take the 33 double with the short sides.
All right. Okay.
45. That's just me. There's a song on here, and I've got to go back and figure out which one it is. It's Keith Richards is doing the vocals on one of the songs, and just kind of half-ass paying attention here and not paying close attention in the store while I'm doing other things. I could have sworn I was listening to Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler singing. And Keith Richards, to me, sounded just like Mark Knopfler on one of these songs. I'm like, wow. And it was good. He's not very harsh and just kind of a mellow tune on there. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but it gave off some severe Mark Knopfler vibes on that. Sounded like Dire Straits. Not the guitar so much, but the singing. So I'll put some samples. I know that one's out there, and I'll put some samples up if you've not listened to them. Again, I think that's a really good album, and I'm happy to have that one toss it into the tail end of my Stones collection.
Wow. I haven't bought a Stones album in
Yeah, I
decades.
kept a copy of Hackney Diamonds a couple of years ago, and I've maybe played it once or twice. I don't have any for sale in the store, so I'm not going to play it. This one, I've got an extra copy or two in the store, so I'll play that more often to try to
Yeah.
sell the other one. But the more I play it, the more I dig it. That's kind of the way it goes with a lot of
Good.
it. The second pickup is a Michigan. It's an addition to the Michigan group, and I had myself a heck of a time trying to find some info on this. These guys are not in Spotify, and the only thing I could find was just a YouTube video. The name of the artist is 2XL, the two number two, and then XL for double XL, which I like to wear. And the name of the release is Business Without a Building. Discogs calls this. Let me go back to the date on this. This is from 1984. Discogs calls it pop rock new wave. I listened to the sample that I could find. I've listened to this too, and it's this one's a little beat up, Steve, and it's generic 80s pop trying to be new wave, not tremendously outstanding. I don't mean to besmirch these guys, but then I couldn't find anything on them whatsoever. Discogs
Yeah.
was just this is their only release, the only thing they've ever done. There was no bio information whatsoever on them. But there is now. I did find some stuff. I did a lot of research. Oh, by the way, the back of it is even autographed by each member of the band, thanking whoever to Chrissy, I guess, owned this at one point in time. It's cool, and it's their only release. There was a little insert with stuff on there, but I was able to find some stuff. These guys are from the Lansing area, I believe. Let me go back to my notes on this here. Formed in 1984 in Metro Detroit, by guitarist and vocalist Phil Vigilis and Pat Murphy and Jay Jolly. They've been active for decades, and they're still working as a rock band in the Metro Detroit area and surrounding areas in Michigan. They play original plus a lot of classic rock covers. They've opened for acts like Eddie Money, The Guess Who, Rick Springfield, Mark Farner, of course, Grand Funk, Mitch Ryder, and other Michigans. So one of them owns a recording studio in Clarkston, Michigan, and they actively still work as a band, 2XL. I did not know this. So
Yeah.
Discogs does now have bio information. I added all that in, so the next person that goes looking for them can check it out. I mean, it's decent enough stuff. I don't want to go too nuts on there, but there's a reason this was their probably only self-release album.
Yeah.
Nothing personal, guys. That's the way it works. So, but a neat addition to the Michigan collection, simply because I like that kind of stuff. That's how it works. That's why we collect, right, Steve? I'll listen to it a couple
That's
times
right.
and then say, we'll worry about that later.
You file it there, and a couple decades later, you pull it out and give it a shot again, and go,
I
"Wow!"
remember listening to these guys. So without 2XL, I will put together a Spotify playlist. You guys will have to dig that up on YouTube yourself if you want to look for it. To prove me wrong on the music, if you indeed do dig it. But for everything else that we talked about in our pickups, and for the stuff that we will discuss through the episode, we'll have a Spotify playlist with a couple of songs from each, so you can listen in on what we've got. You will find that link to the Spotify playlist in the description of wherever you are watching and or listening to today's episode. And if you're on the audio side of things in the Believe Network or through the Believe Network, please feel free to hop in there, leave a review. It helps spread the word, or share that. And if you're listening to Spotify or iHeart or Apple or Amazon, same thing goes. That all kind of comes from that same source on the side, but we'd appreciate hearing from you, or at least a review to help kind of spread the word on the audio side, because we do enjoy both versions of this. So it's not just the YouTube, but you can listen to us when you're driving, but it'll put people to sleep, so you better be careful.
Oh, what? Are you kidding?
All right, Steve, let's talk about Columbia House Records. I am not immune to knowing about them. I said earlier, I never joined. In the 80s, when I was a teenager, I do remember getting tons and tons of those mailers, and I would always take the mailers. The ones that we would get would have the stamps on them, and I would always take the stamps out and break the stamps up, and then paste them into those 12 spots or 9. It was 8, 10, or 12, I think, depending upon the actual year. But I remember doing that all the time, but I never pulled the trigger. And because I guess I don't know why. It's like a penny. I can tape a penny to this and send it in and get these. But then I always got a little scared off saying, well, I don't know if I can buy. I can't afford everything else after that. Not realizing that so many of my generation and yours just ignored that and let them go. Anyway, just like, give me my 12 and then I'll cancel. But it was a part of my youth, and it exposed me to artists and albums that I would seek out in other ways, but I never joined. But you, on the other hand, did.
I love them stamps, man. That was just the coolest thing in the whole wide world. And it took me a little bit. I would get that in, and I would just look it over. And all the albums, not a clue about. Don't even know what's happening with any of this stuff because it's not what I'm hearing. So I would just go greatest hits, greatest hits, greatest hits, greatest hits, anything greatest hits. Boop, 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 boop. I put it on there, send it in. And it introduced me to a wide variety of artists that I like because, I had these 13 records, and these were the only 13 records I had because there is no record stores. So this was a huge deal for me. It was the start of record collecting for me. I could get 45s in my town, but you couldn't get record albums. And I didn't have I wasn't driving yet. So it wasn't like I could go someplace and I'd have to drive 30 miles anyway. So it got me into artists. But of course, we all know Columbia House had the famous catch of, now you got to buy the rest at regular price. That's a lot more expensive than retail.
And if you didn't, they just sent you their pick anyway, and then you were on the hook for that.
And I got up, and because that was they knew, especially like kids are doing this, that we're going to forget about it. And just, no, oh, really? Oh, shoot, I forgot it comes in. What? But it did introduce me to Marvin Gaye. It introduced me to Parliament. It introduced me to such a Jethro Tull. I was such a wide variety of artists because I didn't send my freaking card back in. And so, but it just expanded my musical horizons, but eventually that kind of went away. They got rid of that aspect because basically it's against the law.
Yep. Well, if you hadn't heard the news this past week, it came out and popped up pretty much everywhere. A lot of YouTube channels were covering it. It was in actual news as well. The Columbia House, no longer the Columbia Record Club, but Columbia House overall. They haven't been a record club for couple of decades, I think, but they announced that they were ceasing operations. They, so to speak, the Columbia House, the successor to the Columbia Record Club, is winding down operations. So they said they're stopping accepting new orders after September 15th. And this turned pretty much into a Blu-ray and DVD video business. They do books, I guess, as well now. But the most surprising thing to me, Steve, with that announcement was that they still existed in this age of streaming and digital media. I had no clue, and that's on me. But again, they didn't do music, so I wasn't paying a great deal of attention to it.
Same here. I had zero idea. I I was with them till the bitter end when they stopped doing music. And, I was with them 3 decades.
Wow.
And I'm happy. I have no complaints being with them, but I thought when they did that, it was all done with everything. And I've never seen any advertisements. When we were growing up, every music magazine, you'd have to rip them out because they're always thick cardboard. It's just kind of, God bless it, I can't turn this because of this freaking Columbia ad or coming in the mail. It was there and entice you. Yeah, it was so much. But when it disappeared, you never saw a thing again. And maybe we just read the wrong magazines, Jim. I don't know.
I'm guessing. But yeah, the announcement popped. And this is where it got a little confusing because originally it was like, hey, Columbia House, you remember them? They're wrapping up their business. They're no longer going to be doing it. And then I started seeing reports say, well, wait a minute. They are still. And then I say, well, no, they're not really. But so here's what we kind of found in looking at a couple things. This is an article, web article from what it is? It is the Digital Music News. So this is music related. Columbia House is shutting down again, and this time for good. And this all came from a posting on the Columbia House website proper. And that says that after 9/15/26, so coming up here in a couple of weeks as of the recording of this, as of September 15th, Columbia House will no longer be accepting new orders. You can still purchase books with your credit card or credits as normal. If you have any questions, call us at blah, blah, blah there. So they say that you're still going to be able to purchase books. Now, this was an article from a couple of days ago, Steve. And lo and behold, I went to the Columbia House this morning, the website, and that message is gone. And this is the Columbia House website we're looking at. And it looks like the other one, but the top green where they had the notice says add selected DVDs for $11.95 each to get started. And what's even cooler on the website, Steve, is they've got like that almost a recreation of their little stamp thing where you could add your selections in for just a couple of them. So after the news article said they're going away, but they're going to sell books, and then, well, they're not going to take any new orders. Now the website says something different, except for the fact when you click on some of these, and I tried this a little bit without, I don't want to be careful. I don't want to start buying movies from them. Because yeah, that's their business model. There doesn't seem to be a lot. And then when you click on upcoming releases, it is blank, absolutely blank. Their clearance is blank. So their website seems to be winding that down without winding it down, so to speak. And when you try to click on join or something like that, those are dead links now as well. So maybe that's what they're doing. But the fact that they didn't offer music is the fact that I've really stopped paying attention to them. I mean, a couple of decades ago, quite literally. But that's when you stopped. You said too, when they stopped carrying music and they went to only physical media on DVDs for movies and Blu-ray and DVDs for movies, and books. I had no clue.
I choice but to stop. It's just not there anymore. It was one of those, damn, I got all this credit because you were getting credit then, and every time you bought something, you got so many points. Like we'll talk about later, I amassed a war chest of points. And so, but the problem I really had toward the end of Columbia House is I had everything that they were offering. There was nothing coming up that I truly needed. And so it was like, now what? And it was getting disappointing as they were having less and less being offered, obviously due to the sales. Amazon really put a knife into their site, like everything else. Your book vendors. I mean, music stores closed because of Amazon, basically. And Napster, streaming, all of that.
The idea that notice was removed, I do see some information here in the research I was doing. It says the notice was later removed, but multiple outlets, including CNN, which has confirmed the shutdown through the Columbia House customer service, report that the company is ceasing operations. Existing obligations are expected to be fulfilled during the wind down, and the site currently offers a very limited, that's what we saw there, selection of DVDs and Blu-rays, basically roughly a dozen new releases and older titles under the familiar club-style introductory pricing. Sony Music does still own the Columbia House trademark, and it's still got currently licensed for remnant business, and they're going to continue that. So they are shutting down. That is a given. And the one article said again, which means that you mentioned too that they've had bankruptcy a couple of times in their pasts, due probably to streaming as well.
Yeah. It was like one place after another buy it. We're going bankrupt. Well, we'll buy you. Up, going bankrupt. Okay, we'll buy you. It's just they've had a real rocky road the last 2 decades, and right now you see so many other record clubs happening.
Yep,
they're from labels, from just independent people. And they seem to be popular again, but whatever reason, Columbia just says, no, we just don't want to deal with it anymore. Because, you would just think they have, with Sony Music, they could do something special with it, but who knows?
Well, it's not to say they didn't have a good run, Steve. I mean, 70 some odd years in this business.
Yeah.
The history, I mean, this goes back to 1955 when Columbia Records, then a part of CBS, launched the Columbia Record Club. And this is exactly what you had described. They launched this service back in the mid 50s as a mail order experiment to try to reach rural customers who lacked easy access to record stores, i.e., we want to expand our market. Plus, they were also trying to head off outside competitors. RCA Records was starting an RCA Record Club of their own at the time as well for the exact same reason. Back then in the 50s, it said new members received one free or a very low cost record for joining, but then even then you had to commit to buying a set number of additional titles at the regular club prices. And the titles were delayed usually 6 months after release to protect brick and mortar stores, which I guess I can respect there, but because they were trying to protect their own independent sales. But by the end of 1955, so right after founding, within that first year, they had 125,000 members who bought 700,000 records. And within 1 year of that, by 1956, the membership had approached 700,000 and sales hit millions of units. So that's when they moved operations to a major distribution center in Terre Haute, Indiana, which was very near a Columbia pressing plant. Here we go with the Terre Haute. I do have an item here to share, Steve. This came into the store several years ago, and I've actually had this displayed on our wall here. And this is a mailer from the Columbia Record Club, dated 1958. I blocked the gentleman's name out because the address was still on there in Saginaw. But yeah, this was in a box of records that showed up at the store, and I thought, this is really darn cool. And it is just a Columbia Record mailer. The mailing address, well, phonograph record, do not bend. Let me call it up a little closer for those that are watching. It says Columbia Record Club, Terre Haute, Indiana. And this is the catalog number CL545. I guess I could look it up and see what was in there. This is your free record for obtaining a new member. So maybe there was a little pyramid scheme action happening there. Dated April 25th, 1958. And this person's membership number is on there. So I've always thought that this is cool. And like I said, I just kind of sort of display that off to the side and have that as a nice little memorabilia piece hanging on our wall here. But the history explains exactly your predicament. Now, I grew up in mid-Michigan, not too far from Lansing. So in the 80s, I had fairly decent access to record stores within 20 minutes to a half an hour. Not so much for you.
No. Another kind of a cool fact, though, when they started this, they had they told record stores, if you get people to sign up, you get 20% commission.
Yep, that's what this free one was.
They were paying. I wonder just how many record stores. Well, is that really a good idea? Well, we got you to sign up, but now what? Oh man! But yes, where I live, as I mentioned, no record stores. Anything big, I would have to go 60, 70 miles. My parents were not going to drive me to any kind of record store in the world because the kid's just going to spend his money. So let's just not take them. Cheaper that way. So this was the only way that I could get records basically until I went to college. And it for me, I was super happy with it. I wasn't one that tried to not pay for it. I didn't buy 2 subscriptions, 3 subscriptions because, well, you weren't supposed to do that.
Yep.
So I'm pretty good at following all that kind of crap. But I knew a lot of people that did the other way. And, I paid. There would be times I'd get late, and then you get the late notices and crap like that. But I tried to keep up with it.
Well,
and I loved it.
The history that I've been looking at here on this, it said through the 1960s, they began licensing titles from other labels. And this gets into a part of the discussion I want to have a little bit later on about there's this preconceived notion that Columbia Record House and RCA Record Club releases are of a lesser quality, and that may or may not be
Mhm.
true. I want to talk about that a little bit, but going back through the history, that is really when they started expanding like crazy, because they went beyond the Columbia and CBS record titles to start bringing in things like Verve, Mercury, Warner, not RCA because they had their own, and they also
Yeah.
expanded to, there was Columbia House reel to reels, 8 tracks, and then eventually cassettes in the late 60s and 70s. You could get all of that, and then they obviously moved into CDs through there. It wasn't until the 70s that Columbia House became it was the umbrella brand covering the variety of stuff that they did, but then a Columbia Record Club, so to speak, that went in through there. And they hit their peak in the 80s and 90s. And the 80s especially was where I was getting in that contact with the mailers and the stamps, but never quite fluid enough to pull the trigger on the club from my side, as I said.
Well, it was it? It was 1996 they hit their peak, and they did was is 1.4 billion in
Yes,
sales
yes,
in
yes.
1990. I mean, that is so crazy. Uh, but this was interesting when I found out. I didn't know this is when they sent out free records, or free CDs. When the free CDs went out, it cost them basically $1.50 to send out those free CDs. But because it's free, it's a promotion. They did not have to pay the artist royalties.
Real, oh,
So,
goodness.
yeah, really. So Nirvana, you know what? Hey, look at so here we're moving product, right? So
Mhm.
hey, we're moving out product. No royalties are coming if it's a free CD going out or album because a promo. Then
Wow.
with the CDs, they were making incredible money. They were making like $7.50 per CD,
Mhm.
which was a lot of profit on them. But it's just you have to buy them, and so. But yeah, our artists got screwed out royalties. These guys.
Not much different these days with streaming, I guess, as well. But no, that's interesting
Yeah.
too. And the production, when they move to compact discs, the production costs on those are next to nil, because you're not using a stamper, you're using physical media, but it was just a fairly cheap piece of plastic that you could make endless copies of, because it's digital,
Mhm.
not like you're going to have to redo a stamper after a certain amount of pressings on a record. So I imagine that they viewed that as just an absolute win-win, because they could send this stuff out for virtually nothing, and then if they sold 5 or 6 extra CDs on top of that, they made their money back and then some. Well,
Yeah.
1.4 billion at
Abs-
that time, like you said. That's crazy.
I mean, yeah, it is. That's just kind of mind blowing. And to go from 1.4 million and within 10 years
Yep. Billion,
closing it.
billion, 1.4
Yeah.
billion
Billion. Yeah.
to the
Billion.
to the late
And
90s and early 2010, and through the 2010s. That's when you mentioned Amazon and other digital forms really started taking a hit.
yeah. But they had, yeah, at the beginning, you got the card, you had to send the card in. Eventually, that card did go away, but they were doing things like buy two, get one free, buy one, get one half price. And this is where I was really, especially when the CD era came in. And I was, now making, some good money that I could, oh man, all of a sudden I get in my Columbia House package. It's this big box of stuff, and then like it's just once a year, every year. I'm talking about this before. They had box sets. Buy one box set, get another one free. That was to me amazing. And I had this beautiful Miles Davis one CD box set. I bought every Miles Davis box set that I could off of Columbia House because I'd get one and get one free. It was a great deal. And when I got into jazz, since jazz was a Columbia artist, I wanted to get these Miles Davis CDs. God, Columbia House, I had all this credit because we were buying stuff. They got credit and you could use for free albums. And I was just snarfing stuff up right and left. And it really gave me a gigantic CD collection of, I had about 8,000 CDs.
Wow, before the
Um,
flood. That's amazing.
before the flood. And, and I would just, I could get artist catalogs and that because of Columbia House.
So that was a major boon to your collecting habits on both vinyl and CD.
Extreme boom. I just, because even as I traveled and I was getting moved, I would get to places that didn't have tons of people. It was before I was doing all my traveling. And so I'd be in a town, we got a freaking record store. They got one record store. And so Columbia House just kept feeding me what I needed. And though I said they were not cheap, it gave me music that I couldn't get.
That's, that's the gateway which made you what you are as a collector today, which you have to be kind of thankful for, even if you're looking back saying, wow, I spent a lot on them, but it is a part of your history, so to speak.
Very much so. Huge part.
Now, anecdotally, and this is the other thing, I hear a lot of this in the store, and we bring a lot of used records in, and my little policy, we clean everything, inspect it, we ID it. And I get a lot of folks asking, okay, this is a Columbia House issue, this is an RCA Club or a BMG issue. Is there a quality difference between that and the regular commercial issue? And the gut response is, well, of course it is. It's a club issue. But with Columbia House, so to speak, the fact that they used Terre Haute as their distribution in Indiana, as their distribution hub, because they had easy access to the Terre Haute pressing plant, meant that these were essentially the same pressing. They were coming from the same stampers. They were using the same presses. Technically speaking, there really was not a great deal of difference. Now, that is a different, when you talk about quality, you're talking about a different animal than collectability. And I want to get into that in just a second here. Now, the research that I'd done said, you know what, there really isn't. They were both pressed at commercial copies and club editions in the same place around the same time. Identified different in the markings. The Terre Hautes, if you're ever looking in your runouts, they say a T or a CT or a CTH in there. But there would be extra things added sometimes on the label or on the back to identify it as a club issue. So the club and retail versions were frequently identical or extremely close. They often shared the same metalwork and stampers, came from the same manufacturing runs. But many collectors report that CRC copies are typically quiet, well-centered, and sonically comparable. Where this comes into play, though, is that there have been noticeable differences when Columbia House or Columbia Records opened up to other labels and they started bringing others in. When Columbia would press club copies from their own things, they still had access to the masters and the stampers. Oftentimes, especially in through the 80s and the late 80s, especially when they're bringing in these other labels that they licensed to bring in under the CHR run, the club run, they would maybe not have the original masters. They would go from tape copies or something like that. So there would be a generational loss or two in some of these non-Columbia records that would come into the club. But again, that seems to be anecdotal according to everything that I found.
Yeah, I also saw that, and everyone does think that. The prices generally, it's a club one, it's a lot lower price and Discogs. Well, there was just a lot of them made that were for that particular pressing. And also the packaging at times were different. You might not get a real inner sleeve. It was a paper sleeve. It may not be, a lot of times it wasn't a gatefold like the original. It was just a regular one. And so to me, it's more packaging than sound quality.
Yeah, same thing too. A lot of, because they were not making hardly anything or making enough back on those freebies that you mentioned going out, they wouldn't put things like even posters or inserts in some of them. It would be as bare bones as possible on some of those releases. And so when you're collecting, if you are saying, I want to collect these, but I don't want any club issues, in some cases you're saying, I want the album as it was originally intended, with the inner sleeve, with the gatefold, with the inserts or the poster or something that came with it. And sometimes you're not going to get that. That's where something like Discogs comes in very handy when you're trying to identify something that may not be readily identifiable. I've got very, very few club items in my collection now. Again, I didn't belong, so I don't have any of the original ones, but things that I've saved. I showed the Best of Blondie a few weeks back, and very difficult to see, but on the back, And this is the most telltale thing. The print on a lot of these will just usually put a CRC, or maybe there's a line on there saying that's manufactured for Columbia House Records. I've got a copy of, this is a store copy of the Christopher Cross album. And this is absolutely and totally identical. I didn't even check to see if it's a Terre Haute. It is indeed a Terre Haute, looking at the runout. Absolutely and totally identical, Steve, except they threw a sticker. That's not even a print. That's just a sticker that says manufactured by Columbia House under license. So they put the sticker right onto the outside. So if you're looking to ID club issues, it can be tricky sometimes, but it is possible.
Yeah. I just saw Christopher Cross last night. He was great.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, that's very good. So since I rebuilt the collection, I was surprised at how many Columbia House records or just subscription records that I have. Oftentimes, I'm just out there, you find them in bins, and I'm not looking, is that a Columbia House or whatever? Just go, I would like that album, or, on Discogs, it's a little different. You can look, if I'm buying something off Discogs, then I know what I'm getting. You still always do have that stigma, like we talked about, God, does it sound better or not better? I can't tell, but yet that's been kind of drilled, I think, into most people's minds, Jim. So
it is. And I've got a couple more examples of stuff to show here that really kind of break that rule. One maybe reinforces that it is different. The other, that it's a little bit kind of a fallacy on the value. I've got a copy of the Moody Blues, The Threshold of a Dream. And this is identified on Discogs as a mispress, but it is a Columbia House issue, but it's banded like it would be for radio play. So for whatever reason, I mean, the Moody Blues are an act or a group that are meant to be listened to, like Pink Floyd, any of these old prog or symphonic prog albums, where one song bleeds into another and there's no real break in between. But somehow along the line, when they were pressing for the club issue, somebody decided to fade out and fade in between each song. And this becomes a real bit of a rarity. Not worth a great deal, but it's a CRC banded and labeled as a mispress because of that. And then one other example from my collection that kind of throws the idea that all club issues are going to be worth a lot less to the wind, and maybe this is a little bit less. I've got a Columbia House under license issue of Van Halen's For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And even as a club issue, this thing hits triple digits, and I don't believe it's too different than the regular issue because of the rarity of this being on vinyl, the original presses.
Sure.
So not always the case.
Yeah. And, you said the rarity on vinyl. Columbia House was known that once, everyone, we're not sending maybe vinyl to stores, but they kept selling it online. They did that with Reel to Reel. With 8-track, they kept selling it. And I know they kept vinyl going, I believe it was till 1992. I was so disappointed when they stopped, but it was very selected on what you could get on vinyl by then. It's like most of it were like, I don't want that. So too bad. Well, I didn't matter if I had the Van Halen, I would have lost it anyway. So who gives a crap? But
well, and for those of you who are collectors on the vinyl side, especially, I guess the end be all on this is that generally speaking, club editions are less collectible and command lower prices than the non-club or the retail pressings of most of the things that go through there. Serious collectors do usually prefer standard commercial first or early pressings because it's got that quote unquote authentic version attached to it. And club copies were widely viewed as secondary or alternate editions for the reasons that we talked about. So, but as we mentioned, there are always exceptions to the rule on that. And I think it comes down to the release. It comes down to the pressing in some cases, whether or not it's collectible and or worth a little bit more or less than a issue.
Yeah. It's kind of like a book, the first pressing, that's the one you want. And since Columbia House did wait 3 months before they would release it, I know you would see these in stores. God, why is it in Columbia House? I really didn't know they were waiting 3 months. I just thought that they were just stupid and couldn't get it put in right away. But
I would imagine that, especially with you mentioned the 1.4 billion in sales. the retailers, the independent and the non-independent record stores, and even the big box stores would probably throw a major fit at the labels
Yeah.
if they were releasing those before or after. I mean, a lot of this happens now. Let me compare this to artists releasing variations. We talked about this in the variants. They're releasing their own variations on their websites first. It's not a club, so to speak, but in some cases it could be. You're following them, or you join a fan club. I have seen a fan club issues for artists very specifically that go first. Taylor Swift was kind of famous for this, for undercutting retail sales with their sales of a variant that she wants on her own. So I can see why in the historical aspect that Columbia House gave that padding. And I'm thankful that they did, because it would have been, I think, a different, the idea of record stores through the 80s, 70s and 80s would have been a very different thing had they been kind of stifled out with competition by the labels themselves direct.
Yeah, totally agree. It makes great business sense, because no matter what, their bread and butter is going to be these record stores, and especially with the rise of big box really taking over all that. So, yeah.
So where has this moved into in today's contemporary age? We mentioned that a lot of, there'll be fan club type issues with the artists, but there are record clubs out there still, even if we're losing Columbia House, or we lost them years ago as a record dealer. There's others that have popped up into their place. So you've got Third Man, you've got VMP, the Vinyl Me Please, although that's its own side issue, as we've talked about. I have a couple of VMPs in the store here that they may or may not sell. Blackfoot. This is not that Blackfoot though, but it's a 2021 VMP. They do variations, but you join that club.
That's an awesome album. That's Zamrock at its best, man.
Okay.
That thing is incredibly good.
That's why I said,
I
folks,
just
look
want
at
to
this,
say that.
and I have to say that's not the Blackfoot you think it is. So
it's Zamrock, man.
And this one came in last week too. It's another VMP, Vinyl Me Please, from ZZ Top and their Tres Hombres. And this one, it's got the OBI strip, or not even really a strip, it's the fold on the edge, and I give it a hot sauce. So the clubs now, I only have VMP. I don't have any other issues to show off from the store here, but they're different, and they make them unique by giving them a color or a specific insert or something different about it to make them appealing as a club. And I don't want to get into VMP because that's a whole nother ball of wax.
I got issues.
Yes, you do. Yes,
but,
you do.
But there's been a lot of clubs, and a lot of them have folded. They've come up. I don't think Black Box is around. There was some other ones where it was like a club where you would kind of source money in. It would go to the artist to help out. Folded. But a couple of them, I'm still in a couple. Third Man Records, and this is a Jimi Hendrix Valley of the Jams. This is only available on Third Man Records. It's a 3-album set of Jimi Hendrix jamming.
Just jamming.
And there's always a bunch of extra crap in there that keeps falling out. But
now, was that that was a Third Man Vault, which means it's only available as a club.
Third Man Vault.
Which is the Third Man Club.
Yeah, and so the Vault, you have to have a subscription to get these things. When the Vault first started, man, those records skyrocketed. Now there's so many people in the Vault, they go up a little, but nothing great. It was highly collectible. The one that I really have gotten into is from Fuzz Club. And that was this one I just showed today on my Sunday show, Body Transmission, which is like industrial dance. But Fuzz Club every month comes out with an album, sometimes 2 albums that they send you. It costs, with shipping and everything, about $38. It's not too terrible. Have a special. They're limited. This is 377 of 500, so there's only 500. Now they send groups that pretty much no one knows anything about. I think you can attest to that, Jim, as you try to find stuff. And so, it's limited that way. But for someone, if you just don't want like a top 40 or, one of the older groups, it's a great way to learn about new music in a lot of different types. It's some of my favorite albums of the year, when I do that every year, have come from Fuzz Club, because it's just blown me away at what's happening. It's just People don't know about them.
And I think that's one of the elements of newer clubs that borrows a little bit from what Columbia House used to do. I mean, yes, you get those 13 for a penny that you pick, that they give to you, so to speak, for that penny-ish. But then if you don't order, you're at their mercy for what they want to push. Now, the newer clubs have taken that to the side where they say, okay, we're going to send you something each month, but you
Hmm.
have a way to opt out of it and take credit unless something happens like Vinyl Me Please. Then you end up
Yeah.
getting screwed over on that. But yes, it's a good way to to explore and find out new artists and be exposed to new music. But at that same time, you're kind of at the whim of what the club decides you should get.
Yes, you are. That can be good. And I have a few albums that I don't know about this, but for the most part, they send stuff that I would not have bought. I probably would have just passed on, and I get it. Go, holy moly, this is so good. Like this one, Makina is the name of that group that I just showed you. Makina,
Mm-hmm.
they're out of Portugal. What's the chance of me listening to someone out of Portugal? And so, but I loved it. And there's been some great Italian stuff that have come. This Fuzz Club's based out of the UK. So you get more of these European groups that I just wouldn't know about.
So it's a great way to expand, but you've got to be open minded enough. I think maybe that's what I'm getting at with the
Mhm.
newer clubs.
Yeah.
You've got to be open to some stuff that you normally wouldn't want to get to. So that's not that safe kind of buying that you would get otherwise.
Yeah. And I'm seeing it's the independent labels that are doing this. Sub Pop has a club.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another label out of the UK. God bless it. Now I can't remember who they are, and they're a bigger label, but it's more of these smaller independents that are doing these clubs where, hey, come in and we're going to give you our selection of the month, a way to help promote their music. I thought I heard even like the Blue Note. There's a Blue Note club out there
Oh,
too
okay.
for jazz, and every month you're going to get another one. So it's been embraced, but that's because of the whole vinyl resurgence, and a lot of younger people like this. And so, they're jumping into this. And I've talked to a few of them, and they're into a lot of these different little clubs.
Here's a take, and I don't know what you or our listeners would think on this, but do you think the streaming has created a little bit more of a subscription culture in younger collectors where they're okay with that, paying a monthly fee to get their music because they're doing that on a streamer service in a lot of cases. So why not just that same thing for physical? I'll subscribe and you tell me what. Maybe I'm out of line on that, but
Hmm.
that the idea that they've been conditioned a little bit to paying a subscription is maybe something that makes them a little more open to that type of physical subscription service.
That's a really interesting point. I hadn't thought about that, but it does make sense. As you said, everything's subscription now,
Yeah.
you know, no
My
matter
editing
what.
software, which I hate.
Yeah, yeah. You know, TV, you got 1 billion subscriptions on there. Oh, yeah, it's so damn confusing. You don't know what to do. And it could very well be it's just part of it. And it is a good way to explore.
The
It just
thing is,
costs you
though,
money.
with all of these, the Vinyl Me Please, wherever that is on there, but your Fuzz Club or a Third Man Vault, I don't think you're going to get 13 releases for a penny anymore, 12 releases for a penny anymore. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, those days are gone. Once in a while, you get a sale, 10% off, maybe 15 for woohoo.
So all of
But
you young folks, you youngsters that are coming in, you unfortunately will never get that thrill of opening up a mailer and finding some stamps that you can rip off and tag on there and say, these are the records I'm going to get.
that's and it was a thrill. So it's just so believe me, folks, it was exciting. We didn't have a lot to do back then.
Except collect records. So,
Yeah.
well, very curious, dear listeners and viewers. Did you ever partake in those older clubs, the BMG, the RCA, or especially the Columbia House Record Club? Did you get the same thrill that Steve and I did by attaching those stamps to to a little mailer to get your things. Again, I don't know why I never did, Steve. I just never did, but I always did get that thrill of checking out all those album covers. I always thought they were so cool, but just never ever subscribed in there. But yeah, if you had, let us know in the comments. Do you have a favorite club nowadays that you are in that you think is a worthwhile one? Let us know and let our other viewers know as well. And let Steve know because he's a joiner.
Yep, that's right. I want to be part of it too.
All right, folks. Well, you have been listening and watching to two guys talking about Columbia Record Club Records, the Vinyl Community Podcast. I still think, Steve, it was a great way for folks to get going in the earlier days, and stuff like this old mailer from the 19. You stop and think that it's been around for 70 years, for crying out loud. It's a shame it's gone, but it was a shade of what it was, and its hype. So maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's time to move on.
It is
something new.
All right.
Yes.
Well, you folks have a great week, and we will talk to you all next time from Two Guys. My name is Jim, and I own a record store.
I'm Steve, a record collector. Bye, everyone.
He wants to be in your club.
Yes.
Only if you have a clubhouse and meetings.
and also a handshake.
There you go.